Hello, hello. This is actually take two of this month's Goddess Chat. My name is Leah DeLuzio. I am the owner and founder of Her Sacred Circle. I am lucky enough to be the admin of this community and the host of the monthly Goddess Chats. And so what these are is it is a monthly Facebook Live where I interview an amazing badass woman from our sisterhood. And this month, I am interviewing Michelle Chen, and I'm going to try to bring her on. We had some tech issues in the last live, so we're trying it again. Sometimes when we're close to those full moons and new moons, technology gets a little weird. So fingers crossed we'll be able to bring her on this time. Let me know as you're joining. Say hello in the comments. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Robin. Let me know if you're watching the replay. So if this works for us and we're able to get it going, then let me know that you're on the replay. Drop replay below. Hello, Katrina. So this looks like maybe a good time, 10 a.m. on a Thursday. Everybody's on. Good morning, Robin. How's everyone feeling? How do you feel in your body? Hello, Michelle. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Okay, hopefully it's going to give me the option. Absolutely, in the solar flares. Yeah. Feeling that too. All right, let's see. Let's see if we can get her on. It's interesting, Michelle. I don't know if maybe it's 10:10 is what feels like a good time. Yeah, right. Maybe we'll get rock and rolling at 10:10. And hey, worst case, we flow with it, right? Because that's what we do in the sacred feminine energy. Instead of getting frustrated and being like, why technology? You just flow with it. And are there other ways to still deliver medicine, even if things don't line up the way you would, ideally want? Michelle, I'm wondering if it's not maybe like a setting or something that you have, because I don't see the option to invite you, but it looks like I can literally invite like everyone else that's watching. So maybe just do one more time, checking in the comments and see if it is giving you an option, because it is not letting me. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna try one more thing. Yeah, it's telling me that you can't join. So I'm wondering if maybe it's a setting on your phone, my love, which it might be. So what I think we'll do, yeah, it looks like maybe it's a setting on your end because it does not allow me to add you, which is interesting. So what I think we will do, and okay, we're gonna let Michelle play for a minute, but what I would love to do is maybe we just start with a drop-in meditation. I feel like I can use one. I feel like at any moment we can use a time just to reconnect with our body and our breath. So we'll try while Michelle is trying out some techie stuff. We'll do a drop-in, and if that doesn't work, then Michelle will just come back on live. And let's see. She's trying something, but it is not working. Okay. Sorry, y'all. You're on your phone. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Sarah, that's what we're trying to do is having her. Here we go. There she is. I just sent you the invite, Michelle. So hopefully she's coming, and then we'll do a drop-in meditation at the end. Maybe we'll just end it with a meditation, which I don't normally do. But it does say that I'm adding her. So this is closer than we've gotten before. Yeah, here we go.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes. Let's
Oh
just
my
take a
God,
moment
yes.
of celebration. And it was at 10:10, so that's perfect.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Yes. So apparently it's not working on my computer. So I'm using
Yeah.
this on my phone.
Okay. Yeah. I tend to do it from my phone. I've done a couple of Facebook Lives from my computer, but I always prefer my phone. It's kind of like that safety blanket where like I feel like I understand it a little better. But yeah, this is exciting. Okay. Well, we already have 18 women here with us. So welcome to everyone that is here watching. Please drop comments. If you have questions while we're chatting, let us know. Again, if you're just now tuning in, my name is Leah DeLuzio. I'm the owner and founder of Her Sacred Circle and lucky enough to be the admin of this community. These monthly goddess chats are an opportunity to showcase amazing women and to be a bridge to share with our sisterhood just amazing medicine and different healing modalities, different ways of thinking, different ways to get inspired, different ways to move your body. And I kind of just chat and bring in different women that really inspire me. And Michelle is one of those. I met Michelle in a one-to-one session a few months ago. She is now in my return to circle facilitator training. So she'll be facilitating circles soon. She is an Akashic Records Healer, a human design embodiment guide, a professor, a marketing strategist, all the things, so many things. So welcome, Michelle. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. I love to start these chats just by asking, because I find it really interesting how we end up magnetizing people or experiences or opportunities into our lives. So I would love to know, how did you find the sisterhood? Like, how did you find the Goddess Collective? And maybe we'll start there.
Yeah, so it was through somebody I know, and I've been following her for a while, and she was at one of your circle, like in South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and she had this really powerful story. She shared this wonderful story about using her voice. And I stumbled upon it and I was like, what is this? And she tagged you in it. And I was like, okay, who is she?
Ah.
And so I clicked on you, went to your page, saw all the things, and I'm like, I have to know you. Like I just don't know what it is. But it usually is these kind of things, right? It's the same way with the Akashic Records. When I was learning, it was the same way. I was like, what is this? I don't even know what it is, but I just feel drawn. And so when I stumbled upon your page, I was like, okay, you want to check it out. I joined the group, and then I was like, this is amazing. And it was just the right time. I felt like I was ready to kind of step in and embrace more of that divine feminine, and I was just like, this is great. I love it. I love the space. I love the content. I love what you do. And so then I booked a session with you.
Yes,
Oh,
and the rest is history. The rest is magical
yeah.
history, and here we are.
So
I love that. I love that.
people work. I was just going to say that people work. And so if you are posting content and you're like, well, I don't know if anyone's reading, people are reading. Sometimes I don't write comments or like the page, but I'm lurking, I'm reading, and I just go click and book. So,
I love that.
yeah.
That's awesome. It's always so fun to just kind of hear how people stumble across it, because I do think that the medicine of sisterhood and this medicine of reclaiming the sacred feminine within all of us is so important right now. And it's just really beautiful to watch that ripple starting to just really happen, all over the planet. So I welcome you to the sisterhood. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so excited to bear witness to your journey with facilitating circles. And you're in New York, correct? Am I right on that? Okay. Yeah. So what area are you in New York? Where will your circles be? Which part?
Upstate New York. I mean,
Okay.
Buffalo. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So upstate New York sisters, anyone near Buffalo, just know that Michelle has amazing medicine to offer, and she'll be doing circles soon. So yeah, let's dive in. Gosh, you do so much and you offer so much to the world. And I would love, I guess, for you just to share a little bit about your story. I'm really interested today in touching on the Akashic Records, also human design. But we only have so much time, and those are such big topics. So
Yeah.
I'm just feeling really pulled to focus on Akashic Records. But I would love if you would also kind of speak to human design. But yeah, tell me a little bit just about you and how you found this medicine and then knew it was something that you were supposed to offer to the world.
Are you talking about specifically Akashic or
I
human
think
design
let's
or
just
everything?
talk generally your story of how you kind of stumbled upon these, and then we can flow through either.
Oh yes, I am drawn to the Akashic always. And so like I will love to talk about it because it's really life-changing, like for me. So I would say, how do I stumble upon it? I just have to go all the way back to when I was little, because I always felt like when I was growing up, right, often living in a very patriarchal society, living in a society that kind of tells women what to do, what to say, how to be. I felt like I had a lot of that conditioning when I was growing up. And so I carried a lot of that wound in me, not being criticized for the things I say or wanting to do, kind of like my truth, right? And for a long time, had no idea who I was versus who other people want me to be. It was very entangled up in my own identity. And so I actually like had to leave my home. So I traveled. So I grew up, I was born and raised in Singapore. And I had to literally like leave the country to come to the United States to be free from some of this conditioning because it was so like it was just so much of my energy. And at that time, I didn't know that I was soaking up everyone else's energy. I had no idea what energy was, how to protect myself, and like why I was being this way. And so, like that, I've always been kind of like searching for that, like my identity, who I was, what's my meaning, and my purpose. That was something that's really like important to me. And then through a lot of that struggle, like I learn, actually was through a dark night of the soul. So I experienced a dark night of the soul, like most of us did, when I was like, what is this like energy healing? What is this? And so I came upon that, the Akashic, because I was always drawn to the idea of like past lives without knowing why. And I found somebody. It was just like happenstance. It's always that way. I was just like, I tell the universe, lead me to somebody who can teach me to help me. And I did. Stumbled upon somebody and learned about the Akashic Records, and then started going deeper into uncovering kind of like a past life, ancestor wounds, generational patterns, like things that were brought on because of war and poverty in my lineage, and learning about that and understanding why that had happened to me, why my, the conditioning, the things, the beliefs, the fear I inherited from my parents. And that still worked like in my life. And so when I decided that I wanted to step out and to use my voice more, I realized like all those things were holding me back. And that was when I really started that journey of like going back, unlearning. And so I started the Akashic Records first. And I remember, and this is a true story, when I first encountered Akashic Record, and I knew, I was like, I want to be a healer. I don't know why. I'm just drawn to this. But then I freaked out because it is sort of that, it was like the universe asking, do you really want this?
Yeah.
And I have always been very much in my divine masculine, very much in the masculine, very much, in the mind, right? Because like that's what society taught us. That's what I learned, that you have to be really intelligent. When I was growing up, people say, oh, you're really intelligent. And that was how I felt loved and accepted, was
Yeah.
using my mind, and speaking in the way they want to hear me speak, not in my truth. So I didn't, and so it took a long time to kind of unlearn all of that. And so for the Akashic Record, it was a lot of healing. It happened with the inner child. And I spend years working on the inner child. It's just crazy, like how like sometimes this pop up, and I'm like, I thought I already cleared that. Why is it coming up again? And then it started with like a past life regression. I saw that I was persecuted for being an herbal, like a witch, basically. And a lot of my clients have that wound. And it's kind of interesting that when I go in, when they have issues with their intuition or their throat, not being able to speak, we go into a past life, ends up which one? And so I
Yeah.
didn't know what that was too. And I was like, oh, I was this. I always was drawn to kind of like herbalism and a lot of this kind of, which I was taught growing up, that's kind of, you don't go there.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
kind of weird, right? And then especially because then I became Christian. So it was even more like more wounding. But and anyway, so it was I don't even know if I answered your story. I mean your question, because I'm just like so much in the story. But yeah, so clearing the inner child, clearing the mother wound, that was a very big one for me as well, because um there was a lot of issue, like well, I wasn't treated very well. So there was a lot of abuse in my family, and which they didn't know was abuse. We didn't know was abuse, but it was a lot of having to clear that relationship with my mother, forgiving her, and all of that I still brought into my current relationship. And I was like, I don't want that. I want to break the cycle.
Mm.
And so like the Akashic record has really given me a chance to like heal, but then to heal other women because I have been through that and I understand. And when they come to me, I'm like, I totally understand. There is no right or wrong in the Akashic records. There is no like shaming. And that I thought that was the most empowering thing. It's because I understood why I had to go through that. It brought like purpose, gave me
Mm.
purpose and meaning to my pain so that I can then share it with the world and help other women and also to help my mother. You know, like that understanding, that forgiving, like when I forgave her, I felt it wasn't just her, it was like me. You know,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
I, that compassion. And so I learned all of that. I learned self-love, I learned unconditional love and what it was until fairly like in my 30s because I didn't know what it was. I never received unconditional love. And I feel like
Mm.
that was what the Akashic opened my eyes to and taught me because, like, how can you love other people? Like, if you can't, if you don't even know how to love yourself, and if you don't even know what love is. And for a lot of women who've gone through trauma, you know, either inflicted by their parents, the people they trusted, like, we never really know what that feels like. But in the Akashic, that's where I was like, oh, this is what love is. This is what
Mm.
it feels to be embraced by the universe. And it's the most like it's a beautiful feeling.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
There's so much there to talk about. I think what I would love to dive into is for, because people are getting really excited that we're talking about the Akashic Records. So for a sister in the sisterhood that has no idea what the Akashic Records is like, what are you even talking about? Can you break it down like really simple? What is the Akashic Records? Ways to access it? How, just how would you explain it to someone who has
Yeah.
never heard of it?
So the Akashic record is really like it's it's a field of infinite possibilities. So it's kind of it's like on the I would say cosmic realm, but you know, so it's not here on the not here in this plane. Um, and it is a library, so it's more commonly known as the library of our soul memory. All the deeds, all our actions, all our wants, our desire, everything recorded in this the Akashic records. So I do things a little differently in the Akashic records too, but we go up and so like in a session for client, you know, or a session with somebody, we'll go up and you can access the Akashic record. Everyone has their own. We usually end in the session, we usually start with the heart space. And so typically with the sessions, just like I guide people into finding that heart space. And then from there, they can kind of access their own records because it really is connecting. It is connecting with your records and connecting with the masters and the keepers of your records. Um, and so when we go up there, you know, all the books, all the things. That is your past life is there. Your soul origin is there. All of that is there. The inner child is there because anything that happened previously, even a second ago, it's all recorded and is there. So I can go back after this live and then access the record and be like, okay, what did we learn? And it really is sort of when you're in there, having a conversation with the guardians of your record because it's like you know you can do it and you can see you can meditate and people have done that and sort of like going in and meditate and just setting the intention that they want to go to the Akashic record. And so it doesn't matter how it shows up for you, people would see different things. I see a library most of the time. Other people see all sorts of things. And you can go there once you just meditate, access it, and then ask for it to be reviewed, right? And then explore it. But for me, as a practitioner, when I take people through it, it's sort of not just a guided meditation, it's more an interactive process. So when I guide
Yeah.
people through it, we go in, we start with the heart space. And typically, you know, once they know where to access it, I'm like, can you feel it now? A lot of it is feeling. And so I'm like, and this is the first time they've been in that space. They're like, oh, I didn't know. And I said, yeah, now you have access to it. Come to it all the time. Start from here. Ask to speak to your guides. You know, you have the power. And a lot of times it's like where it's more like people don't know where to start, how it feels. But once they do, they're like, okay, I can do this, and as a facilitator, because I call myself a guide, and then I'm like, okay, let's do this interactive process. We'll, either go into a past life and then I will guide them through. So it's letting their soul lead. Their soul are leading it. And I'm just kind of like facilitating it. They're leading, and then I'm getting information from the guardians of the records, and their soul is just guiding, and I'm just help interpreting it. So sometimes they're like, a lot of times the clients I get are kind of a lot in their head because I'm that way too. So I attract people that way. And they're
Yeah.
like, I don't know if what I'm seeing is correct or accurate. And so then it allows me to kind of hold space and be like, yes, what you're saying is perfect. It doesn't matter. I will interpret it for you. And then we kind of guide them through, sometimes because especially if it's a deep, deep wound, people see things that can be really, like, I wouldn't say scary, but painful. So there was a lot of, like, for instance, when I did mine, I didn't do it alone. I did it with someone else was guiding me. I saw my death with the witch wound, and I have had other people with other clients who literally saw themselves burning.
Yeah.
And in those situations, it can be kind of like, we don't want to add trauma to trauma because they're like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. But the soul is always ready. So whatever in the session, it is ready to be released. And so I was like, okay, so having somebody as a facilitator being, okay, we're going to pause this, then let's go back. And so for her in that session, it really wasn't just that she was burning. It was really that she no longer trusted the universe to have her back. And so I was then guided to, like, okay, let's, so I kind of like, I get the information, I kind of know, but then I'm helping her. I'm not telling her. I'm
Right.
like, okay, let's do this, so that she's seeing and experiencing it for herself. And so I feel like that comes that autonomy and knowing when she
Yeah.
sees it, and then later I was like, you can always go back now into your heart space. And then you can, because when I do it, we start from the heart space, but there's a little healing that happens as well. And then I always tell them, I said, well, now you experience it, you can come back here and do it on your own. It is usually just like, how do you explain something without bringing somebody on that journey? That's
Yeah.
the only
That's
difference.
so often in this world, and even like when I'm doing these goddess chat, it's so hard to describe a lot of the work that like we all do in this world. So it's so hard. Sometimes it's one of those things like you have to experience it. I
Yeah,
love that you call yourself a guide, because I think that ultimately that's what we all are, right? Like each individual is their own guru, is their own best healer, like is their own guide. But to have other people, because we do have sometimes this mistrust with self or this doubt of like, did I really experience that? Is like that what that was? If you have this guide there just to be that safe space, to be that support as you explore things like this, it's really beautiful and kind of
yeah,
adds that safety, right?
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're good. Keep going.
No, I'm just like really excited because no, that's true. Because the other thing too is, like, a lot of people don't trust themselves with their
Mm-hmm.
intuition. They can be a really, like, I have some people who are energy healers, but they may not, like, trust themselves and what they're seeing. So through this journey, it's also learning how to trust and teaching them
Mm-hmm.
that whatever you're seeing, yes, that's correct. And so I
Yeah.
feel like at the end, people are not just like, oh, I feel healed, but they're like, I trust myself. I trust that what I'm getting, this
Yes.
information is correct. It is, I'm not making this up. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny because when I first started, I was like, because being in my mind so much, I'm so logical all the time. I'm
Yeah.
like, no. And then it's funny because then I was getting information that I was no way I would know. And then I
Yeah.
was just like, what is this? And I did a journey with somebody, and and we were both seeing the same thing. And I
Yeah.
was like, yes. And then after she was excited, I was excited. I was like, yeah, we're not making this up.
I know that feeling all too well. Like, oh, that actually happened. Okay.
Yeah, it was funny because I was
Yeah.
like, I said, I'm seeing this. And they're like, yeah, I see it too. Or I would see it in my mind, like I would see it in my mind's eye. And then I would tell her, okay, do something. And then she's like, oh yeah, I'm seeing this. And it matches. And I was like,
Mm,
yay.
so
Because
fun.
sometimes, that mental kicks in. And so
Yeah.
in the journeying, I can sense it feels different. It's really hard to explain, but it feels different if the answer is coming from the mind, the ego, or the mind versus it's coming from, I would say, like intuition or heart or source.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels a little different. And then I can tell. And then I'd be like, no, 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 we want to backtrack. Like, it's that really, and then like, because um, if they're saying something that's really coming from their mind and I know, then there are certain ways that I can help pull that back and be like, no, what is your heart saying though? Or
Hmm.
what are you really getting? Is that really what, this person is saying, your past life is saying? Is this, or like, is there something else? Like I can sense it. But I feel like if you're, when even when I'm doing it on my own, I'm still like, will that really happen? I still feel like my mind tries to make sense of everything. And so
Mm,
when I
yeah.
even do like my journeying, I have someone else do it just because then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let her lead
Yeah.
and then just kind of surrender. And
Right.
I
That's
can't really
surrender.
do it. Yeah, that surrender. And sometimes it's harder for me to do it on my own, especially if it's something that's really like deep. Like, and I
Yeah.
feel like then the defense mechanism comes in, and that happens very often. Um, because, so like in the Akashic, it's not just a past life. There are many different kinds of, like sometimes your inner child comes in. It could be a past life, but then there are other things that come in. So I've had sessions where it's just a past life, but then a relative who have passed on will just come into the session with
Mm.
a message. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's
This
happening
is
now.
happening.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. And that usually happens with ancestral stuff, like it
Yeah.
could be ancestral wounding, and then an ancestor comes in and you're like, I'm honoring that now. And so it's happened
Yeah.
before. It's kind of weird, but that's why it's kind of like it happens when it happens. I just flow with it. And for
Mm.
somebody like who used to be very like control, like
Yeah.
very much wanting control, it was very hard. And it was like a lesson for me to like learn to surrender.
I love that. I think that's a really just big lesson that we're all going through right now, men, women, non-binary, like as we shift with this rising of the collective feminine or the rising of the sacred feminine rather, we're being asked to lean into the mystery more, to lean into things that don't logically make sense, right? And to
Yeah.
open ourselves up to the beauty of this like mystery that's unfolding all around us and always has been. And so that's why I love using phrases like guiding people to remember, because it's like all of this is always available to us at all times. And then it's just when you get put in places where you feel safe enough to explore, then you remember these pieces of yourself and you're like, oh yes, okay, that's true for me. Like, oh yes, that does tie to this, and you feel it in your body. And so I love that you spoke to kind of dropping out of the mind and down into the heart. I think that's really beautiful. I also want to share, let's see, I think it was Wendy. We had a few comments come through. Everyone's really lit up about this topic, so that's cool. Yeah, I'm really excited about just learning more about the Akashic Records. I don't know, I know what it is. I've never actually had a session, so I'm excited to book one with you. But I haven't dove into it too much. But there was something that Wendy said up here about journaling. Let me see if I can find that comment real quick, everyone. Let's see. Okay, I can't see it, but I think she was saying that. Oh, there it is. Okay. Journaling to remember the energy and atmosphere around you is key to get back. So it brings in that writing piece. Do you find that to be true as well? I'm a big advocate for writing, for free writing. Anytime you can put pen to paper and just like brain dump, like let it all go, you'll be really surprised what comes through. Do you weave in any writing or journaling when you're exploring the Akashic or after?
Um, which is why I think the circle will be very, because that's what I want to
Yeah.
do. That is
Yeah.
something like that was not what I was taught to
Right.
do. It's kind of, but that's why, like, I mean, when I'm thinking about my unique medicine, right, something that I can bring, I want to bring in all different modalities. I
Mm-hmm.
feel myself drawn very much to chakra healing, and that usually is even where I start. And so I want to bring in like different modalities. So, like,
Yeah.
for this, like, journaling, I think is really important because I think it really sets the stage. And that was why when I booked a session with you and I found out, I was like, what is this? Teach me how to do it. I want to incorporate it in my session because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's really I don't do that, but I would really love to do that to kind of like after that. Usually after my session, um, I spend about 15 to 30 minutes kind of like talking about it, kind of decompress. What does that mean? And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
still channeling, I'm still getting information. And typically it's just kind of like answering their questions. But I
Right.
think, and I give them things like, okay, these are some affirmation, which is channel because usually that happens and I don't always remember it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, these are some affirmations, but I think I'm going to incorporate. These are some journal prompts that you can do and you can
Yeah.
think about, because that's something I would really love to kind of bring in a very natural way.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients like to journal, and so typically that's one of the practices. So I'm like,
Hmm.
go do that, but I don't give them prompts to do it. I'm like, do it, write it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they tell me some people are not really into journaling. It's more they like to be nature. Others
Yeah.
like, so whatever I'm receiving, it's usually just right for them, because some people like
Yeah.
to dance. And I was like, they're telling
Yes.
me, like I'm hearing from the masters, teachers and loved ones of the Akashic Records or the Guardians of the Record for you to dance. And I was like, I don't know why. And you're like, oh my God, I love dancing.
Yes.
And
I
then
love that.
and then all that thing comes out because they're like, I stopped dancing since I was a little kid, but I
Mm.
loved it. And I'm like, yeah, because they want to bring you back to when you were a child, to
Yeah.
access that innocence, that spark before all the conditioning and all the fear. And so then I was like, dance. They want you to just like go out and dance. And that is a way to kind of move through some of the um, energy, because
Hmm.
sometimes they need to kind of shift. A lot of times the healing gets to be really deep, and then I'm like, yeah, the energy needs to move and integrate. You need to shift it. And so like, go dance, go do whatever, walk, go run. And some people it would just be like running,
Yeah.
walking in nature, some of them journaling, but like just move it, let it go out, let it come
Yeah.
out.
In whatever way it looks like for you. I
Yes,
love that because I
yes,
think that's very true. We're each so unique that we're going to find our medicine in different ways. Like that's why I
yes,
love these goddess chats, is because I know that some women are going to be like, oh, the Akashic records, like that's it for me, and feel really drawn. Other people, it's going to be some of the other things like therapeutic art or yoga that we talk
yes,
about. And
yes,
so I
yes,
love that. And I love that, like there's no right or wrong way. Like you mentioned that at the beginning, there's no right or wrong way. So it's like what comes up for you, what you feel. It is that returning to self and that returning to trust and be like, okay, if this is what's coming up, trusting and leaning into that, and then moving it or loving on that wound in the way that feels right to you. I would love to touch on briefly, because you mentioned it earlier, and I just think it's really important just with everything in the world right now. You mentioned that a lot of your clients, because I know you work a lot with women, that the witch wound is one that comes up. And that's one that I work with a lot of women on. And especially in the return to circle facilitator training, I find that the witch wound is one that comes up really strongly, because oftentimes when we want to speak our truth or have the bigness of our voice or share our medicine in a larger way, or even just share our medicine in a small way, or even admit to ourselves that we have medicine to share that doesn't like
yes,
fit the norm, right?
yes,
We have
yes,
these like triggers
yes.
and this fear. And even like for me, my witch wound is as strong as like I get really uncomfortable in any government building, even the post office. Like people that like know me, know I'm terrified. Like don't ask me to mail anything because like I don't want to go in the post office. But I've realized over time that some of these government buildings, like I always feel guilty when I'm walking. Like if I'm just like walking in the courthouse to pick up paperwork, like I would feel like I'm the one in trouble. So it's really interesting. And it took me
Yeah.
time to kind of like unlayer that a little bit. But the witch one's very, very prominent with women. So you have found that exploring the Akashic Records is a beautiful way to kind of lean into that, to explore that in a safe way and learn more about that specific wounding.
To release it.
Yeah.
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 So the I do healing. So I do want to say, so there are a lot of times, and this is just kind of like my observation. When people think about the Akashic record, they think it's a channel reading, because a lot of times people do offer it's a channel reading and it's only past life related. But I do records in a way when I consider myself a healer. So I'm like, the channeling is really great to know it, but then we want to release it. So I've done like when I channel for people and if they don't want to see their death or whatever, sometimes that happens. But then I'm like, well, now it's in your body, you know it, in your awareness, it's here now. We need to release it. So
Mm-hmm.
we go into that past life, and then we kind of like, it's not just the awareness. Now you know, you feel, and we release. And when that release happens, something needs to come in and fill it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when the release happens, we bring in love and light. We bring in what, sometimes it's affirmation and like believing in that space. When we are in that space in your Akashic records, in this beautiful, like I don't want to say high vibe, very like just not on earth kind of space, right? We set new intentions, fill it with new affirmation. Things come in, and so that there are things like, I want to speak my truth. means safe to speak my truth. And so we do all that thing. And so in that space, and then we do a healing after with like helping you integrate, and usually it's a beautiful experience because for a lot of women, with that witch wound, so a lot of the people I know are either doing some sort of like they want to pivot and they don't dare to embrace their intuition. They're like, I feel called to do this, but I don't really want to because I'm afraid people might think I'm crazy. And they don't want to share it. And for a lot of the women, they're very intuitive, they're very spiritual. They just haven't really started using it or trusting it or even want to talk about it. And so a lot of the women I meet are kind of like closeted, like me. Like I was closeted for so long, and then and so a lot of times that's so empowering because they see it, they clear it, and then we set new intention. And then I also taught them, I said, now you can always come back here. And I like in my sessions, I always like to have a gift and a blessing. So we ask a guide or an ancestor, whatever who shows up, even sometimes as a guardian of the records, we show up giving a gift. And then we ask, how can you use this gift? How can you use it in your life now that you know it? And so sometimes women go out and then they're like, if a crystal comes in, I'm going to buy the crystal now. And I was like, yes, to buy it, set intention, hold it so like that it's free for you to speak your truth. And a lot of times it's just even little things. Some of them are not, it doesn't even have to be a spiritual thing, but it could just be like talking about how you feel in your family. And because that witch wound, we were persecuted for speaking our truth, for being powerful, wanting to be powerful. And if we notice, this is all over again, right? In this present time, it shows up in a different way. And like all my life, I was told I was too loud, I was too opinionated. And these are all like, and I was persecuted in the sense of like, of course, I wasn't like burned at the stake, but people didn't want to be my friends. I was teased a lot. I was bullied a lot when I was growing up. People laughed at me a lot. I learned that in order to fit in with other women, as a sister one again, to fit in with other women, I had to be a certain way. But to also fit in with like men, I had men tell me all the time, like, all sorts of things like, if you don't speak too much, if you weren't so opinionated, people will like you more. People would date you more. And like when I was growing up, that hurt a lot. And so I became quiet a lot and laughed and teased for having radical ideas, or like I was just very different. I grew up being like very different from everybody I know. And so I hid a lot and I didn't know what that was until I explored that witch wound. And so like a lot of the Akashic Bracket, and I've talked about human design, but I mean, it's human design a little bit, but it's really about, because I use the human design as kind of a way to like, who am I? So it really is all of, and then the Akashic to be like, let's clear and release all the things that come up, because it was always, for me, has been a journey of coming home to myself so that I can help other women. But is that drive? And I feel like a lot of women I meet have that drive, the desire. They're just like, they just don't know what though. They're like, I know I'm here to help people. I don't know what. And I was like, let's explore this a little bit. Let's go in your Akashic record and find the things that need to come up. And so, but I want to say that it's sort of like many layers deep. A lot of the women with the wounds see not just one lifetime, but multiple lifetimes. And, but one of the best things too, like about through that journey, is we go in and we get gifts as well. So the witch wound, you're like, oh, this sucks. But then you get gifts too. And you're like, oh, now I know what to do with this. And it's just amazing. I always add that into all my sessions, because I'm like, well, it doesn't always have to be tragic.
Doesn't always have to be death.
It doesn't have to be sad. I'm like, where's the blessing? And I clear it. So when we go in, we are not just experiencing it, it's not the awareness. We release and we clear it across all time, space, portals, and dimension. So we consider that lesson done. And so then we set the intention to clear it. Any contracts that you make, any vows. Sometimes people make vows. I've had someone who was a shaman in the past and ended up, making a vow that I'm not going to heal again, because that person thought in that lifetime that she, it was a he in that lifetime, cause of death of a child.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so even though it had nothing to do with it, but and so like going back and seeing it and knowing that, oh no, you didn't cause it, but then releasing that vow because it was so strong,
Right.
held it on. And so which is why and so we want to like release it because I've had that too. And so a lot of us may carry those vows, like we'll never do this again, or say, I was betrayed, I'll never. And that's a vow that you made in their lifetime that carries on because it's protecting you. And
Mm.
so you're like, well, I don't want this. I don't know why. It's just that there's part of you just trying to protect you, protecting
Yeah.
you. And if you see it as protection and not fear, because
Right.
fear in a way is protection, then I'm like, you shift the energy into seeing
Mm.
this more as like, oh, embracing it. Because I feel a lot of people are angry at it. I'm like, no, it's protection. It protected you. So we're kind of like
Right.
soothing it, understanding it, like we are with a child. And then we're
Yeah.
like, we're done with the lesson. Thank you very much. We close the
Yes.
chapter.
I
And then
love
we
that. I
kind of
love
like,
the thank you, like the expression of the gratitude, like instead of pushing away, being resistance, being angry, hating on it, kind of like turning towards it, offering it love and be like, thank you for showing up in this way to protect me. But like, I see you and I no longer need your services. Thanks. Like, peace.
yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
feel that.
And that was big for me. Like one of the things for me is like my mental body. So like my mental body, like that's my head, um, always tries to come in, always
Yeah.
tries to rationalize everything. Even in a session, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm trying to rationalize it. It took me a long time and I was like, hated it. And so it really shifted. Someone told me, it was like, well, have you ever thought of your mental body as an ally? I was like, holy shit. That shifted
Yeah.
the energy right away. And I was like, no. And she's like, yeah. So instead of hating on it, your mental body, or sometimes the inner child, your past life,
Mm.
they're trying to protect you. So like,
Yeah.
let's see, how can we ask them, like, how can we have you be on our side? You know?
Yes, I
And
love
so
being in relationship with it. I love that so much because I think like if and that's why with the Akashic Records, and I do want to briefly touch on like what human design is because I know we talked about it just so people are aware that have never heard of that because these tools that are out there and these modalities that are very, very ancient and some of them that we explore here in this sisterhood that you may have seen, they're just ways to get to know yourself. They're ways to
yeah,
remember pieces of who you are. And then as you begin to be in relationship with all of these aspects of yourself, you're bringing all of that knowing to every interaction, to every experience, to every challenge or conflict or struggle. You're bringing all of these pieces and you kind of know then, oh, okay, that's a little bit of the witch that's showing up. Or here I need to lean into my witch. Or here's my inner child. Or I need to lean into that. You know what I mean? And you can use
yeah.
all of it to really experience life in the fullest expression possible?
I
Yeah.
do want to add, because it came up. A lot of the people that I work with, because a lot of us are old souls, and I love when you talk about remembering, because it
Mm.
really is remembering. A lot of times we all have those gifts. I mean, all of us do, and it's like it's that remembering of like, oh, you are doing this, and so sometimes like. And this is when I did my own journeying into the Akashic Records, what I saw was that gifts come in when you are ready. Sometimes we have to go through, we are not ready to accept it, we don't know what to do with it. And so one of my favorite things to do in the Akashic actually is like soul gifts retrieval.
Mm.
And so it's because we are going in and we're asking for like a gift that would help us. And those are always fun because sometimes we go back to your soul origin. Some people would just like, it may not even be the intention, but we go home. And so they see
Mm.
themselves star seed, they see themselves in the angelic realm, an elven realm, all sorts of it. I've others tell me they have seen themselves as dragons. And so then
Yeah.
we go there, we're like, okay, how can we work with it now? Now we know, now you're aware, meaning that you can always go back. But like,
Mm.
how do we work with it? Why are they showing you this? And so a lot of times it's like that soul gift, like understanding and awakening something. I had someone who for a long time was afraid of, she had her own traditional business, but wanted to bring in more kind of the metaphysical, but she wasn't, like, she didn't feel like, she was afraid to do it. And then after the session, she was like, I don't know, like, because then she we didn't talk for weeks. And then she told me, she was like, I'm doing it now. And like, she's like, I don't know what it
I
was,
love
something
that.
shifted in me and I'm doing it. And I was like, oh my God. And usually when I can't, keep in touch with them later, they say the same thing. Like once they integrate the gift or there's something shifted in them, they start like thinking about it, reflecting, because a lot of times it's remembering. They
Mm,
know they're like, and so some people come to me, they're like, I don't know what it is, but I want a book. And it usually is that
yeah.
way because I'm like, your
Yeah.
soul wants to do something now. It wants to release something, it wants to integrate something, and sometimes it's both. It's like you
Yeah.
release something and then you integrate something all in a session. That's why a session is like 2 hours long.
A lot's happening there.
Yeah, a lot of things are happening there, and
Mm,
and so that's one of the things because it's the remembering, because we realize that we actually like remember a lot of those
yeah.
things and it comes really naturally. But for women, we're like, or we are taught that, well, if it comes naturally, we kind of dismiss it. We're like, oh
Mm,
no, it's whatever, right? We
yeah.
feel like we need to go through formal training,
Yeah.
or we feel like, a lot of this, it has to be hard. And I'm like, no. So like a lot of us are just like remembering and downloading all these gifts, and then they're
Yes.
remembering lifetimes of being a healer, because I bet you a lot of women in your group are like
Yeah.
lifetimes of being witches, medicine women,
Yes.
shamans,
Yes.
all of that. Yeah,
Yes. Oh,
and
I have chills.
it's okay.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I got like lit up because I think that's so true. I think that we live in this world, and like though I think certifications are really important. I think that training can be really important, but I also find that oftentimes those trainings or those journeys that you go on, it's all just remembering pieces of yourself anyways, like by
yeah,
the end, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
really we have this like innate wisdom and we have these ways that we can tap in to these different pieces of ourselves. And then it's like through that knowing that's our unique medicine because it's coming through our unique energetic signature, our lifetime or
yeah,
lifetimes, our
yeah,
unique voice. And that's why in the world that we live in, community over competition can exist because we're all completely different. So we all are actually offering something completely different. You and I
yes,
could share the exact same, like let's say you're doing circle. We can hold
yeah,
the exact same circle on the same topic and even have a script. People are going to take away completely different medicine. Different people are going to resonate. And so I think that's really beautiful that you touched on that we are there. There's so much, and not just within our own life, but our lineage and those that are connected to us that we might be carrying in or being connected to. And it goes on the flip side too. Then you got the intergenerational trauma and some of the other things that you're carrying from,
yeah.
your lineage as well. But I love that. I would love to, because I know we've been on here for a bit, but I would love to briefly transition and just can you explain for those that are also curious, because something else you do is your human design embodiment guide. I know a little bit about human design. I haven't done the deep dive, but I know a little bit about myself with it. Can you explain like what is human design and kind of just a little more about that?
Yeah, so human design brings in different modality, right? So they bring in astrology, the I Ching, quantum physics, Kabbalah, and I think the chakra system. And so it's really, I would say human design really is a roadmap to kind of who you are energetically. So it's a roadmap. So I see it more as a roadmap to live your life and kind of like a manual, like an instruction
Mm,
to how you can kind of embody it. And so human design works really well. And I use human design a little differently. Like I use the Akashic Record. I use everything a little differently.
yeah,
But
I love that.
I bring both in because a lot of times, so like the human design can look at your chart and I can tell you kind of like it's like a blueprint for this lifetime.
Mhm.
So it's almost like your soul decides, okay, these are the lessons and the gifts I am going to do in this lifetime. And I bring it in this lifetime. And on like physical form or like in paper, I am looking at it. I'm like, oh, these are the lessons and the gifts, your purpose, your passion, your superpower, all of that. Your dharma, your karma, all of that here in this lifetime. So
And it's
sometimes
based on
it's,
your birthday, correct? Sorry to interrupt, but it's
yeah,
based on your
no,
time and date of and location of birth, right? Okay.
yeah, so it's based on all these different modalities. So it based heavily on astrology because it's based on your time of birth and then your place of birth, time and place, yeah, and date of birth, and then looking at the planets, when that happens. So there's all these energies that's coming in too, and so the technicality of it can be pretty deep. And so, but unlike we're looking at it from a whole, like on just like when we step back and we look at it, it kind of tells you sort of like your purpose, like your life theme. And for a lot of people, that resonates with them. So a great example was yesterday. I was doing one for a person, and her life theme was about loving herself. And so it shows her like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. This is like in your human design, your purpose is, you're here to help activate and awaken people to love themselves and to step into their truth. But as you learn how to love yourself, which she had a lot of conditioning around. So I can, because she was searching for her purpose. And in your chart, I can tell if a person is, have this deep burning desire to live their purpose versus one who's not, because some of us are born where we're like, I don't know why, but I feel like if I don't fulfill my purpose, I'm like, my life would be meaningless, and stuff like that. It is in your chart, actually. It's kind of interesting because I found that I had one in my chart. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I know it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right when I was 15, I kept thinking, I'm here for greater things. But it's true, but a lot of us do have that in our chart. And so when I was growing up, I was like, oh no, I feel like such, feels like egotistical, whatever. But that is the one thing that keeps you up at night until you fulfill your purpose. So I think that's the power of human design. It gives you that awareness. And then it tells you, okay, if you are a this is how you can shift it. So for instance, like if you're a generator, the strategies to respond, and it's the great thing about human design is it helps you like I say like it helps you also come home to yourself, right? If you realize that there is no good or bad, right or wrong, it is coming home to your natural inclination. So for me, the most empowering thing, which is why I say empowering guy, it's the most empowering thing with human design is that it gives you permission to be yourself. And it gives you permission to be like, oh, and then not just that permission, but the understanding of areas where you may have been conditioned. And so with the human design, I do the journal prompts because then I'm like, okay, these are the areas where you were conditioned. Let's think about how we can uncondition it. What are some of the things? So is that awareness? And then I combine that with the Akashic Record because it's interesting because a lot of times people come and they get a human design reading, but they actually really do want an Akashic reading. After that, it's kind of funny because they're like, actually, I'm really interested in the Akashic. It's funny. And so I just like how that happens because then we know all that awareness. But human design shows you that awareness, gives you strategies, but then it doesn't really like give you the healing sometimes that people need. And so you have to combine it with something else. That is my personal take on it. Other people may have different takes. But so then I combine that with the Akashic because I'm like, now we know. Now we know the conditioning. Let's go into the Akashic. And because sometimes people come and they just don't have like, they're like, I don't know what to work on. I just feel I need it. So like, well, let's look at your human design. Let's look at some areas. And then you're like, oh, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. I've had people who come and just say like, I don't know, but I'm ready. And then I'm like, good. But then there are others who are like, no, I want to know like what I need to work on. So I work with like different kind of people. And so I'm like, okay, let's go and look at your human design. And then we clear that with that awareness. They're like, oh, that's a deep wound for me. That conditioning. I can see that, and then we go in and then we clear it in the Akashic. That's how I do it like together. But sometimes there are people who just want that awareness. And a lot of times when I do human design, I focus more on like the marketing because that's where I bring in my marketing. And it's kind of like, how do we create marketing strategies or business strategies that really is like supporting who you are. And for a lot of them, it gives them permission to be like, oh, I don't have to show up on social media all the time. And it helps them release that expectation. I'm like, yeah, you don't have to. You're not meant to. And so, or I shouldn't say meant to. You're not really designed to, or like some people just don't have the energy and they feel bad. And so for me, it's just like, it's all about, let's not feel bad about yourself. Let's just go home to who you are really and honor that magic in you. And so for it, I like this two modality, and I'm always learning different modality, learning how to circle, learning how to do this, learning to do that, all of that, because like I want to integrate everything so that I can like give it in a way for like people who find me, like that extra, like I don't know, my own unique medicine is
Yeah.
what I've been kind of like learning how to do and wanting to do in a way that supports women like deeper, because that's what
Right.
I really am drawn to, is like the deeper healing that is lasting, that you can go out and change something, like some of my
Hmm.
clients that go up and start a new program, integrate new healing in their job, or like pivot, you know,
Right.
and bring in healing into their coaching practice that they never used to.
Right. I love that. And I love that it's essentially getting to know yourself in the deepest way so you can show up as who you are unapologetically, because you understand, like with me being like a manifesting generator, like when I learned that I was a manifesting generator, I'm like, oh, okay. And like you have this like aha moment of
Yes.
understanding why and how you operate in the world. So instead of swimming against the current, you can kind of lean into what you are and have it better serve you. So you're thriving in this experience. And obviously there's still a human struggle, but at least like you're bringing like your strengths and your superpowers, as you mentioned, to the
Yes.
table. And especially with business for sure, I think, because there's different ways that each person's going to operate. So I absolutely love that. And I love that you are weaving in a lot of different modalities into an experience for people to have that journey of getting to know themselves on a deeper level, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really important, is just staying open to trusting. And what I also find interesting about these two modalities and others that, like, you know, like a past life regression, or even like yeah, I think past life regression is probably the closest. It's that like you'll then, after you learn these things about yourself, or you remember these things about yourself, you'll start to like see the breadcrumbs throughout like your whole life. Like even like a small example is like the other day I realized, I called my biological sister and was like, oh my gosh, like years ago, before I ever sat in my first women's circle, I held, which I didn't realize was a women's circle, like for my biological sister. I did like a mother's blessing. And it was like through a totally different avenue of like a friend telling me about a mother's blessing. And I was like a wedding planner, event planner at the time. And I was like, well, I could look into that and like maybe hold that sort of baby shower instead of the normal traditional for my sister. Let's do that. And I had this moment last week where I was like, I have been sitting in circle and leading circles for so long. And so it's really interesting. And that's just a small example, but like your dharma, or these things that light you up, if you start to look back, you'll notice. And with the wounding too. So if you have a really strong witch wound, for example, like I noticed with my fear of government buildings and the post office, I was always like, why do I have this weird fear that's so like crazy? Like, why am I weird about these places? And then when I started learning more about my past lives and all of the things, I was like, oh, and you kind of have just these moments where you're like, oh, yeah, all right. Like it all makes sense. And it's just interesting how it's woven throughout your entire
It,
experience.
it is, and it's I love that. I love that you said that, because you know, as I was learning about the Akashic, and um I noticed when I was thinking back of the earlier sessions that I was doing, even before I learned how to formally do some of them, I was
Yeah.
doing it already. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh. And then I had a mentor basically told me, she's like, well, because she's like, you've been doing this for a long time. So for
Yeah.
you, it is that learning the formal, you know, like training, because I totally agree with you. It is all about going through the training awakens, help you remember. I was like, oh, and so she told me, she was, because I was like, huh, I was already doing this even though I didn't
Yeah.
learn how to do it. She was like, oh yeah, because you're just remembering now. And then
Right.
she's like, and so if you lead, because a lot of times I'm sorry, I don't lead it. I let, you know, like the guardians of the record and the soul lead. And I was like, when they do that, I was just like, okay, I'm like, I don't even know if you could do this, but okay, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And that
Yes.
was why I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I love that you mentioned it, because it's true. A lot of times, a few years down the road, you might, I was already doing it. And it comes so
Yeah.
naturally to you because you
Right.
are bringing and remembering all of that. Yeah.
Yes. And so I would love to just throw out to anyone that's watching, like if you get to these places in your life where you're like, I feel like, you know, I'm wanting to lean into something. I think we had a sister actually in the group recently be like, I'm really feeling this call to like support others, but I don't know how. Start reflecting like just on your life and maybe different patterns that you've had or different things that have lit you up. Like I was an event planner, but I was doing like weddings and concerts. It wasn't necessarily like transformational events for women, but it led me here. So it makes sense why I had all of, you know, those passions then. And so look at your own story and just kind of see what were those breadcrumbs that have been laid for you, like along the way. And it's really cool to look back and be like, oh, you know, and it's always there. It's just when you're ready to remember, you do. And then you take that and you take that next step forward, just a little more empowered, a little more in your most like embodied, fullest expression of who you are truly, you know, at the deepest layers. So we've been on here for a while and I could keep talking with you for like another hour, but I would love to just have you speak to how women can reach you if they're interested in the Akashic Records, if they're interested in the human design, if they're in New York and want to come to your circles, you know, in the future. What is the best way for the sisters here to connect with you?
DM me. You're a friend to me. That's on Facebook. I'm here on Facebook all the time. But yes, yeah, DM me. Send me a friend request, and yeah, we can go from there. And I do offer kind of like one-off sessions. You know, like one-off like Akashic healing, which is a little different. And so a lot of times people come to me and they ask me about my process because again, everyone's a little different. And I'm like, yeah, we would just happy to like reach out, connect, and do like a connection call, talking about my process, all of that stuff, because I think sometimes, you know, we have all these questions, and that's okay, because a lot of times you're trying to feel into the energy. We don't really know. And so like if you don't know, you just kind of want, let's talk, because usually I feel like that's what the soul is leading. Just like when I met you, you know, I was like, I don't know you, but I don't know what it is. I'm called to do it, so I'm just gonna go do it.
Yeah, I'm the same.
yeah, that's the same. Yeah.
So so if you've had this feeling during this chat today, if something that Michelle or I said that really like lit you up and you want to lean in more, please DM her, please connect with her. She's an absolutely amazing soul, beautiful human, such a bright light, like this always, just shining so bright. I love that you were willing to come on and chat with everyone today. I would love to close. I'm actually going to close with a really short meditation, just because I had promised that at the beginning we were having some techie stuff. So I'll close it with that. But the last question that I would pose is, if you were to offer like one last drop of wisdom or just one last message that's coming through you in this moment to share with the women that are here live or that will be watching the replay, what needs to be shared from you right now to this community?
I would say be yourself, because there is such a beautiful magic and spark and brilliance. And just like it's for some of you, I don't know why I'm just saying this, but for some of you on this call, from some of you who'll be watching, it is something that wants to come up. It's something that may be hidden, but then there is this beautiful, like almost like a feminine goddess, that kind of healing in you that wants to come up and just like wants to come out and kind of radiate out, and just like let it be, like trust the process and know that it may not like happen overnight, but like lean into that and then trust that like things would open up. And so I would just like just go home, and like by going home I mean like going home to yourself. That is for some women not a safe space to be going inwards, but that this space that we're holding right here in groups, in circle, is a great space to kind of explore. Because as I'm saying this, I'm seeing like images of some women kind of peeking out, not like fully, and then but there is that spark and that brilliance, that magic right in here, like in their heart. They know it, they feel it. And just for some women on this call and the replay may not feel safe, I'm just going to say that they have that in there, and just it takes time, but we are all here to hold space to help that, to have that come through. And so you can embody this like beautiful, magnificent, brilliant goddess or angel or any of that, you know, so that you can share your medicine. And the medicine, I'm also being guided to say that it doesn't always have to be like a professional thing. And medicine is just who you are. Just who you are and who you embody. And then like everyone around you will like get your medicine, even if it's a barista. Just being guided to say that it's not just professional, it's just like embodying, like,
I feel that you are the medicine, giving yourself permission to be yourself and just to journey home to yourself. I love that. What a
Yeah.
beautiful way to end. I would love to just take these last couple of minutes to just connect to our body and breath. So if you have hung with us, thank you for being here for this long chat. Of course, it's 11:11 when we're officially closing. It's 10:10 when we started, 11:11 when we close.
Should I drop off now? And
No,
then,
you can stay if you want to. Either way, whatever feels good for you.
okay.
But for anyone that's here, if it feels good to you and safe to you, I invite you to close your eyes and maybe place one hand on your heart and one hand on your womb space, or maybe another area of your body just needs a loving touch in this moment. And just allow yourself to feel your hands on your own body, your own earthly temple, just honoring in this moment all that you are as you exist in this human experience. Just taking this moment to breathe. Deep inhales through the nose, expanding the belly, and then powerful sighs out through the mouth. It's going to feel better if you hear it. Deep inhale through the nose and sigh it out. Just continue that nourishing breath, just witnessing the rise and the fall of your chest. Feeling the heat of your body, the sensations of your body, the movement of your breath. Just fully experiencing all that is here in this sacred moment to experience. Your soul here in human form. Connected to all of it. Connected to this duality of divinity and humanness, and leaning into all that you are. Giving yourself permission in this moment to be all that you are, to express all that you are. Honoring this sacred sisterhood and this safe space here in the Goddess Collective to explore pieces of who you are, to remember aspects of who you are, to remember why you came here, to remember why you came here. Just take a moment to feel into all of that, and I invite you to feel into your heart space in this moment and ask yourself that very question. Why did I come here? What is my medicine? What pieces of myself are calling for remembrance and reclamation? Just allow whatever arises to arise. And in this moment, make a commitment to yourself that in some small way, after this call, moving forward in your day-to-day life, that you will lean in a little more to the essence of who you are. You will explore a little more in safe and sacred spaces, all that you are. The light, the dark, the beauty, and the mess. All of you is welcome here. And let's close this sacred space with 3 deep breaths together. Deep inhale through the nose. Powerful sigh out the mouth. And twice more. Deep inhale. And exhale. And last one. Deep inhale. And release. When you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you, Michelle, for being here with me this morning. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I know this is a longer one, but there was so much medicine that poured through, so much juicy conversation. I had so much fun. I will share in the post, I'll go back and edit it, ways that you can contact Michelle to learn more about her and what she does. And I will certainly keep you posted on her circle facilitator journey and let you know as soon as those circles are happening in the New York area and virtually. So much love to you. So much love to everyone that was with us. If you're watching the replay, thank you. And if you think that, a woman in your life could benefit from hearing this conversation, please invite her to the community and tag her in this video. All right, my loves, have a wonderful day. Mwah. Bye.